WBC mandates Keith Thurman next. What are Errol Spence Jr.'s options? Alright, y'all, let's talk about it. So, a lot of news going on right now surrounding Errol the Truth Spence Jr. and what will be Errol Spence Jr.'s next fight. Will Spence Jr. drop the titles? Will Spence Jr. fight Keith Thurman? Is there a possible Manny Pacquiao fight in the making? Or will Errol Spence move up to 154 pounds? There are many things being talked about when it comes to Errol Spence Jr. right now. But the latest breaking news is the WBC has mandated Keith Thurman to be the next fight for Errol Spence Jr. A lot of people were hoping it would be Boots and the IBF, since that has been the title that Errol Spence hasn't defended in the longest. But just about 30 minutes ago, the WBC came out and announced officially Keith Thurman, yes, is the next fight for Errol Spence when it comes to the WBC title. What does this mean? With the problem that Terence Crawford threw in with the David Anese fight and not accepting the undisputed fight, it has drawn this whole situation out. And now it's going to end up being a year, maybe 2 years before they can get this situation solved. Basically, if Errol Spence fights Keith Thurman and loses anyway, then he has to start all over. If he drops the titles and fights someone else, then he still has to fight Keith Thurman again, or potentially someone else. If Keith Thurman decided to fight someone else in the meantime and lost, could potentially be Boots or someone else that Spence would have to circle the block and fight them as well. Not only that, he would still have to fight Terence Crawford. So I'm not sure what the best option is for Errol Spence, but fighting Keith Thurman comes with a host of problems. Mainly, what if he loses? And if he doesn't fight Keith Thurman, then you're stripped at the end of the day. Now, I don't know if that means if they strip him, does the belt go directly to Keith Thurman, or do they have a title eliminator to where Keith Thurman and the number 2 fighter face off to receive the WBC title? I'm not sure about that yet. But what I do know is there's been a lot of talk about Errol Spence Jr. moving up in weight. If Errol Spence Jr. decides to move up in weight and test the water, he'll be stripped of the WBC title. But if Errol Spence moves up and gets an immediate title shot at 154, it could potentially benefit him more than waiting around at 147. Now, he could actually drop the title and just fight someone else. Maybe he decides to fight Boots. Maybe he thinks Boots is an easier fight. Maybe he decides to fight Virgil Ortiz, thinking that Virgil Ortiz is an easier fight. Perhaps he decides to go after the money with a Manny Pacquiao fight. It's one thing that Errol Spence has plenty of at this moment. It's options in his next fight. The one thing he doesn't have plenty of, unlike Terence Crawford, is easy options. And I told people for a long time that could be a strategy of Terence Crawford. As long as he holds out, Errol Spence is the one with the more tough decisions. Yes, he has more lucrative and a lot more decisions to make, but they are way tougher than the decisions that Terence Crawford has to make. He got an easy out. There are no easy outs for Errol Spence. Well, there could be an easy out, dropping the title. He could just drop the title and not worry about it. Let Keith Thurman face off with whoever he faces off with. But more than likely, if they do immediately elevate Keith Thurman to the WBC champion, he will most likely face off with Terence Crawford. Wait for Terence Crawford, David Anese to be done, and then try to fight Crawford to unify titles and get a big bag of money for that. That could be a strategy in itself. Who knows? I don't know how many fights Keith Thurman has left with PBC. He could have been planning that in the background with Terence Crawford the whole time. It's all about strategy right now. Terence Crawford, if it's one thing I can't give him, he decided to play the strategy game with Errol Spence instead of just settling for what they were trying to give him. Although I don't like what he's doing, I think it's a sleazy way out, but it is a good strategy, and it put Errol Spence in a real peculiar situation and having to make some real hard decisions. What if Errol Spence decides to drop the title and fight someone like Manny Pacquiao? Well, there is a huge benefit in all that, and it's money. He will get so much money for that fight and a huge boost in pay-per-views. But what it doesn't come along with is if he wins a championship. So for him, I don't know if it's all about the titles or if it's all about the money. Because if he takes a loss, Keith Thurman anyway, it's no longer going to be about either one of those things. So it's going to be interesting to see how Errol Spence Jr. works all of this out. Do you decide to go ahead and fight Thurman because you really want that Terence Crawford fight? Do you drop the title and take another 147 fight, maybe a Boots or Virgil? Do you drop the title and fight Manny Pacquiao just for the money? Do you drop the title and move up to 154 pounds, perhaps getting a immediate shot at a 154-pound title? Or do you drop the title and just fight somebody at 154 because you want to move up anyway? Now, if he does that last option, drop the title just to fight somebody at 154 because he wants to move up anyway, he will still hold two of the 147-pound belts, but he will be stripped of the WBC title. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that down in the comment section below. What will be the best option for Errol Spence Jr.? Doesn't have a lack of options, just has a handful of tough decisions to make. You hit the like button for me, share, subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. You're more than likely to get a response on the tube, so holler at me over there. And we are
Louisville, home of the best scrapper, also home of the best rapper. Flow dapper, here's another chapter. Ride through, attack you, ride away your laughter. This is what I'm after, blowing on that rapper. Purple Dro, keep a bunch to blow. I don't serve it though, murder flow. If it goes down, I'm the first to know. Y'all niggas late, like the Conan show. Overdose, overload, sharp flow, leave him with the open throat. Lewis Keys, cool as Nova Scotia snow. Puff a blunt, poke a hole, nigga, you supposed to know. Lewis Keys, blowing blunts on the open road. Fuck a cop, fuck a speed limit, drive overdose. Keep a bad bitch, hips wide like Oprah's nose. And you know that I'm a fool, my freestyle's wet, I'm floating in the pool. You should pay your tuition, you're going to my school. Principal keys, you niggas getting held back. Fuck them little sacks, you can have your bread back. No refund, well here the G's come. Hit your ass up, leave you with your fucking head cracked.